Did some of America's most beloved sitcom stars spend decades hiding a deeply personal secret from the public? For years, millions of fans laughed along with these television icons without ever knowing the private struggles, sacrifices, and difficult choices happening behind the scenes. In an era when Hollywood was far less accepting, revealing the truth could have cost them their careers and reputations. Today, we'll uncover the surprising stories behind these stars and reveal which secret shocked fans the most. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, how famous do you think your favorite star really was? And which actor in this video surprised you the most? Jim Nabors brought a unique kind of warmth to American television. Best remembered for his portrayal of Gomer Pyle on The Andy Griffith Show, and later Gomer Pyle, USMC, Nabors created a character whose innocence, kindness, and simple outlook on life resonated deeply with audiences across the country. To many viewers, Gomer represented a gentler era of television, one where sincerity mattered more than sophistication, and where goodness was never out of style. That beloved image helped make Nabors a household name, but it also reinforced the need for privacy in his personal life. During much of his career, Hollywood and network television offered little room for openly gay performers, especially those associated with family-friendly programming. As a result, Nabors chose to keep his private relationships out of the spotlight for decades. Behind the scenes, however, he shared a loving and committed life with his longtime partner, Stan Cadwallader. The two met in the 1970s and remained together for nearly 4 decades, building a relationship based on loyalty, companionship, and mutual respect. In 2013, after same-sex marriage became legal in Washington state, Nabors and Cadwallader officially married in a quiet ceremony, finally giving public recognition to a bond that had endured for many years. For older generations who grew up watching Gomer Pyle, the news came as a surprise, yet it also revealed another side of a man they thought they knew. Jim Nabors' story serves as a reminder that public personas rarely tell the whole story. While television audiences embraced Gomer's innocence, the real-life journey of Jim Nabors reflected the challenges many people faced in seeking acceptance, dignity, and the freedom to love openly. Richard Deacon represented a different kind of television star, one defined not by flashy performances or dramatic headlines, but by professionalism, elegance, and remarkable consistency. Millions of Americans remember him as Mel Cooley, the perpetually frustrated producer on The Dick Van Dyke Show, or as Fred Rutherford, the confident and sometimes boastful neighbor on Leave It to Beaver. Though the characters were quite different, both showcased Deacon's talent for portraying authority figures with impeccable timing and understated humor. What made Deacon especially memorable was his calm and controlled screen presence. He rarely needed grand gestures to command attention. Instead, he relied on precision, discipline, and a natural sense of dignity that fit perfectly with the golden age of television. Audiences trusted him because he seemed dependable, both on and off the screen. Away from the cameras, however, Deacon was known for guarding his personal life with extraordinary care. During the 1950s and 1960s, Hollywood operated under strict social expectations, and even unverified rumors could seriously damage an actor's reputation or limit career opportunities. For many performers of that era, privacy was not merely a preference, it was a form of protection. As a result, Deacon built a reputation for being organized, reliable, and intensely professional. He focused public attention on his work rather than his personal affairs, allowing his performances to speak for themselves. While many details of his private life remained largely unknown to the public, that discretion became part of his legacy. For viewers who grew up watching classic sitcoms, Richard Deacon remains a symbol of an era when actors often separated their public image from their personal lives. His story reflects the quiet realities many entertainers navigated behind the scenes while continuing to bring comfort and laughter into American homes week after week. Paul Lynde may be one of the most fascinating examples of the complicated relationship between television fame and personal privacy in classic Hollywood. Audiences instantly recognized his unmistakable nasal voice, raised eyebrows, razor-sharp timing, and ability to steal a scene with a single witty remark. Whether appearing as Uncle Arthur on Bewitched, starring in Bye Bye Birdie, or delivering unforgettable one-liners on Hollywood squares, Lynde became one of the most distinctive comedic personalities of the 1960s and 1970s. What made him so popular was his ability to push the boundaries of humor while remaining acceptable to mainstream television audiences. His comedy carried a playful sense of mischief that viewers found irresistible, yet network television of the era carefully framed that persona as harmless entertainment. Audiences laughed at his clever remarks and expressive delivery without necessarily questioning the deeper aspects of the man behind the performance. Behind the scenes, however, the reality was far more complicated. During a time when openly discussing homosexuality could threaten a performer's career, television offered very little space for public honesty about personal identity. As a result, Lynde rarely addressed his private life in interviews and generally avoided conversations that might draw unwanted attention. In later years, biographies and accounts from colleagues suggested that many people within the entertainment industry understood his sexual orientation, even if it was rarely discussed publicly. This created a striking contrast between what Hollywood insiders knew and what much of the viewing public never fully recognized. For many older Americans who remember watching him during television's golden years, Paul Lynde remains a reminder of a generation of entertainers who brought laughter into millions of homes while quietly navigating personal realities that the culture of their time often discouraged them from sharing openly. Robert Reed gave American television one of its most beloved fathers, Mike Brady from the Brady Bunch. For millions of viewers during the late 1960s and 1970s, Mike Brady represented patience, stability, and the reassuring presence of a parent who always seemed to have the right answer. Even decades later, many fans still remember the Brady family as a symbol of optimism and togetherness during a rapidly changing era in American life. Yet behind that wholesome television image stood a far more complex individual. Unlike the easygoing father he portrayed on screen, Reed was a classically trained actor with a deep passion for serious dramatic work. He often hoped to tackle more challenging roles and, according to numerous accounts, sometimes felt creatively limited by the lighthearted tone and formula of the Brady Bunch. Nevertheless, his professionalism ensured that audiences never saw that frustration reflected in his performances. At the same time, Reed faced personal challenges that were largely invisible to the public. Following his death in 1992, friends, colleagues, and various biographical accounts revealed that he had kept his sexual orientation private for much of his life. During the height of his career, many actors feared that public discussions about their personal lives could damage professional opportunities or alter how audiences viewed them. For Reed, this created a profound contrast. He spent years portraying America's ideal television father while living in a cultural environment that offered little room for openly discussing every aspect of his identity. The expectations placed upon television stars were often rigid, especially for those associated with family-oriented programming. Looking back today, Robert Reed's story reminds us that even the most familiar faces on television carried private struggles and personal sacrifices that viewers rarely saw. His legacy endures not only because of Mike Brady, but because of the dignity and professionalism with which he navigated a complicated era in Hollywood history. Charles Nelson Reilly turned performance into an art form all its own. With his colorful scarves, theatrical delivery, quick wit, and unmistakable presence, he became one of the most memorable personalities on American television. Many viewers fondly remember him from popular game shows such as Match Game, where his humor, expressive reactions, and larger-than-life personality often stole the spotlight. Long before reality television and social media celebrities, Reilly understood how to capture attention simply by being unforgettable. What made him particularly fascinating was the way he navigated an entertainment industry filled with unspoken rules. Television executives appreciated his charisma and distinctive style because it made him stand out from everyone else on screen. Audiences loved the energy he brought to every appearance. Whether he was delivering a punchline, sharing a witty observation, or reacting dramatically to fellow panelists. Yet the era in which he worked came with limitations. During the 1960s and 1970s, many performers faced pressure to avoid openly discussing personal matters that might be considered controversial by mainstream audiences. Riley occupied a unique position within that system. He was allowed to be eccentric, flamboyant, and highly recognizable, but the culture of television often preferred ambiguity over direct acknowledgement. In later years, Riley became more open when discussing his life and experiences, offering audiences a fuller understanding of the man behind the television persona. Looking back, his career illustrates a complicated reality faced by many entertainers of his generation. The message was often subtle but clear. Stand out, entertain millions, and be memorable, but avoid confirming the truths that society was not yet ready to openly accept. For older Americans who watched him during television's golden years, Charles Nelson Riley remains a symbol of individuality, resilience, and the quiet balancing act many performers mastered in an era of changing social expectations. George Takei brings a different chapter to this story, one defined not by lifelong silence, but by the decision to finally speak openly. Long before he became a respected activist and public advocate, Takei was known to millions of Americans as Hikaru Sulu on the original Star Trek. At a time when television was helping shape a vision of a more inclusive future, Takei himself was navigating an industry where being openly gay could still carry serious professional consequences. Like many performers of his generation, he spent decades carefully protecting his private life. Hollywood in the 1960s, 1970s, and even much of the 1980s often offered limited opportunities for actors who openly challenged social expectations. For many, discretion was seen as necessary for career survival rather than personal preference. That changed in 2005 when Takei publicly acknowledged that he was gay. His decision was motivated in part by growing frustration over political debates surrounding same-sex marriage and LGBTQ+ rights. Rather than remaining silent, he chose to use his public platform to advocate for equality and greater understanding. It was a significant moment not only in his own life, but also for many fans who had followed his career for decades. In the years that followed, Takei became one of the most recognizable voices supporting LGBTQ+ rights in America. Alongside his husband, Brad Altman, whom he later married in 2008, he embraced a new role as an advocate, author, speaker, and cultural commentator. For older Americans who remember watching Star Trek during its original run, George Takei's journey reflects more than a personal story. It illustrates how social attitudes can change over time, and how courage sometimes means moving from quiet survival to public leadership. His life stands as a testament to resilience, honesty, and the power of using one's voice to help create a more inclusive future. Dick Sargent's story is often remembered as one of quiet courage and personal honesty. Millions of television viewers knew him as Darren Stevens on Bewitched, the charming husband constantly trying to keep up with the magical surprises created by his wife, Samantha. As one of the familiar faces of classic television, Sargent became part of countless American households during an era when family sitcoms were among the nation's most trusted forms of entertainment. For much of his career, however, like many performers of his generation, Sargent kept his private life largely out of public view. Hollywood during the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s was often unforgiving toward actors whose personal lives did not fit traditional expectations. Many feared that public disclosure could limit opportunities or permanently alter how audiences perceived them. That is what made Sargent's decision in 1991 so significant. On National Coming Out Day, he publicly acknowledged that he was gay, becoming one of the best-known television actors of his generation to do so openly. Rather than retreating from public life, he embraced a new role as an advocate for equality and understanding. He participated in LGBTQ+ rights initiatives and used his visibility to encourage acceptance at a time when many people still faced prejudice and misunderstanding. What made his decision especially meaningful was his desire to help younger generations. Sargent wanted people struggling with their identity to see that a successful, respected television star could live honestly and with dignity. He hoped to be remembered not as a hidden secret, but as an example of resilience and authenticity. For older Americans who grew up watching Bewitched, Dick Sargent's legacy extends beyond television. His life serves as a reminder that true courage sometimes arrives later in life, when a person chooses honesty over fear and uses their experience to make the path a little easier for those who follow. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one.